middle finger on my right hand hurts. And I remember them joking with me. They said, with all due respect, sir, because I was an officer, we don't give a damn about your middle finger. We're only concerned about your head right now. I said, okay. So they took me in, and I remember they were giving turnover to the nurse as to, how they found me and all that kind of stuff. And one of them said, and that's when the dump truck hit him. And I remember coming off the bed a little bit and saying, you're thinking, I didn't get hit by a dump truck.
What are you talking about? That's not me.
You're thinking of a different accident. And they said, no, man, you got hit by a dump truck. And I was so confused at that time. I was like, I don't understand. So let me put together the pieces for all the viewers and listeners. When I spun out, I got T-boned by a dump truck, and I put my head through the window of the truck. And
it's the impact of the truck impressed into you. That's how you're able to do that.
There was intrusion by the dump truck. The dump truck hit me, pushed me, and then the dump truck went off the road into the ditch. And
you ended up in the Jersey wall because the dump truck pushed you into the Jersey wall.
Right. And they had to cut me out of the truck. And so I had many, many, many small glass shards in my head. And luckily, I knew the guy who was there. He was the ER tech that was working on my head. And for about, it just seemed like forever, for hours, he was just pulling glass shards out of my head. And that's probably that was probably the second most painful ordeal I've ever gone through. At some point, somebody had reached out to my uncle, who was a battalion chief in the department at that time, to get in touch with you.
Oh, I think it was, I want to say maybe that lady had your phone and called John, because John was the first one that called me, but immediately followed by Jeff.
John would be my uncle, and then Jeff, his brother.
Right, your other uncle.
So Jeff is the chief, and John was his brother. Mm. And so John called you. What did John say?
That you'd been in an accident, that was pretty bad. Wasn't sure what all happened, but I needed to drive, an hour away to the hospital to come see you. That you had a head injury was all that John kind of knew. He didn't know much at that time. But when Jeff called, I was already, I threw on some clothes, grabbed little man, and jumped in the car. But because I knew that it was serious, and Jeff was like, so yeah, there's a piece of his head missing and might be some punctured ribs. And he called out, I think, an ablation or something for your head. I took his, what he said a lot more seriously, just because I figured he had more intel into what was going on. But it was pretty scary. And, my big fear in all of it is that, I would drive there. That whole drive was horrid. That whole way thinking, what's going on? What do you look like? What do you feel like? Will you remember me? Like, I remember that whole way thinking it'll be okay no matter what happens or what kind of recovery we have if he at least knows who I am. Because when you hear your husband has had a major accident, he was T-boned by a dump truck, you just don't know what you're going to be walking into when you walk into the hospital. So my biggest thought in all of it was, will you know me? And I knew that it would be okay if you did. So I was amazed when I got there and you recognized me, and also you still looked like you. You were pretty bloody, but you still looked like you, because I didn't know what I was going to walk into. A dump truck is rather large, and you're just a man, so it's, you faced a dump truck, and I would say you won, but it took a little piece of you.
So what Jeff had said, I guess he had gotten some poor information, but at the end of the day, the biggest injuries that I sustained was a head injury with the glass in my head, and you
ended up getting staples in your head, didn't you?
Stitches.
Yeah.
There was a flap that came off my head, and my finger was broken between my middle finger, between my knuckle and the tip of my finger, was broken in 8 places, something.
A spiral fracture, I think they called it.
Yeah, there's a bad break, and all of that ended up we ended up finding out that I also had a traumatic brain injury.